Hi, so I'm Marcin Sandłak-Jakubowski, and I am the technical writer for Plan. Today I want to talk to you about using plain language in UX writing. So writing for interfaces, writing for user docs. So let's start on why I started thinking about it. Is that earlier this year I took part in a conference, online conference for user UX writing. It covered a whole range of topics. One thing that was specific to that conference is that it all happened in Polish. So all the talks were focused, were tailored for the Polish speakers, usually working in English. So this is why I say on this slide that this presentation is inspired by this conference, because I took some of these ideas and adapted them for us, right? And to give you an example of things that Polish speakers deal with when they have to work in, for example, in both English and Polish, is that when writing for interfaces, Polish can be very, this is my opinion, that Polish is very sensitive to tone. It's very easy to be too formal or too friendly. And I find it much easier to strike this balance in English. So first of all, what is plain language? And I brought two quotes here. One is from plainlanguage.gov, a US website that I'm going to be referencing throughout the presentation because it has tons of useful resources. And the other one is also from the US Plain Writing Act of 2010. And so plain language is language that is easy to understand the first time you consume it. It's language that communicates quickly and clearly. One of its features is that it's easily scanned, and we know that it's preferred by everybody. One thing that you have to remember is that being direct and plain spoken is not talking down, it's clear communication. So how do we know it's preferred by everyone? So Nielsen Norman Group has done a study where they had domain experts from different fields evaluate pieces of writing, or as you can see here, like full websites for full articles, and talking on which ones would they prefer, which ones are clearer to consume. And here we have a verbatim from a nurse practitioner with a doctorate. So moving on. Here are some examples of plain writing in use before we go to the 5 tips that will help you be successful at UX writing. So here is an example also from plainlanguage.gov. This one describes Medicaid eligibility, and they also say that the example that they created the example, that it's not like an original text. So that's a use case. And would you look at this beautiful list? I mean, it's just, I have no words to describe how I like it. But words are not always necessary. And in this example, this is copy that describes a vehicle, that describes how you use a car. And if you want to put it inside a car, that might be much easier to consume with pictograms. And you can find more examples on the plainlanguage.gov website. Now onto the tips. So number 1 is know your audience. And this is key for any UX activity, be it designing the UI, writing the talks, even for this presentation, right? And so what about us? What about GitLab? Well, we support all users from beginners to experts, and we want our interfaces and documentation to reflect that. So users of different proficiency levels. And also we have a range of personas. So I bet you all are very familiar with them. So once you get the feeling and understanding of who you're talking to, you will be able to adapt the language that you're using to your recipient. So for example, is it always bad to use technical acronyms? Well, if you're deep in GitLab settings, for example, you might expect some knowledge on the side of the user. And so just to give you an example, how we worked in Plan. So a few releases ago, we introduced iterations. And so we sometimes get feedback from customers, why aren't they called sprints? Because this specific customer is using a planning methodology that uses sprints. This is because, and you have Holly here, and find her later, and you can ask her for more background. This is because sprints are exclusive to Scrum or Agile, but iteration is a word that also includes sprints and other methodologies. So it might be unfamiliar to some users, but because we made this choice, it will cover more cases and won't dictate methodology, which is also something that we want to do. But sometimes a technical word might be better than a common word because, well, we are in technical writing, even if you're writing for an interface. So, for example, remember to use a thesaurus if you're having trouble with synonyms. So receive might be a better word in technical context because it describes exactly what's happening. Whereas, for example, get has a million meanings and it can be vague for users, right? While in, colloquial conversation in common language, it would be easier to use get. It would be would make more sense to use get because it's an easier word. So you might want to avoid get unless maybe you're using it in API documentation, right? When you're referring to get requests. However, we do use it, but also the headings in our docs, they say list, right? Because this is what the user is doing. So in this way, this is more human-oriented than machine-oriented. So tip number 2 is organize content logically. I don't have much to say on this, besides maybe that you need to put tooltips, descriptions, errors where it makes sense and where the user is looking, right? And we have plenty of examples available within the GitLab UI where the errors appear when you're validating a password. Show the validation error close to the fields and not in some corner. So number 3 is be conversational. And I paraphrase it to myself as speak like a human, So here's an example of an error. It is good often to list the technical type of the error if the user knows what to do with it later. But very often, and I don't know, in mobile contexts, for example, it's much nicer to speak directly and to show empathy, especially when you're delivering bad news. Don't blame the user. And so here's a bunch of other tips that you can read on your own pace. This is good stuff to know in general for UI writing. And there's the link to a talk on the Write the Docs conference on error message writing. And this is something that I remember because it's an alliterative title, because you want your error messages to be humble, human, and helpful. And number 4 is keep it brief. So in UI text, we are limited in space. So make every word earn its place. So here's another example. Both of these, both the before and after, they express the same thing. But the shorter one is what we would prefer. And here are things that if you see, just cut them out, try and eliminate redundancies, so two words next to each other that mean the same things, idioms, because while they are fun, your readers, might not be native users of English. Pointless modifiers and meaningless generalities, so things that we have heard many times, and might even have negative reactions to seeing them again. And finally, number 5 is test and revise. So when you're working with when writing UI copy, what you can use is readability scores. You can put it through a website that tests it for you. In the docs, we use the Veil extension to lint our text. You can run through a checklist that if you go to that link, well, there aren't checkboxes, unfortunately, but the bullet points that are there are basically, this presentation in a nutshell. And also, check in with users. I have maybe twice while being here, I have helped with like user research, and it was eye-opening to me seeing where the users struggle when using GitLab. And so that's the 5 tips that will make you be successful when writing for UIs and user documentation. Thanks.